Hello, everyone. Hi. So my name is Alexis McFarlane, and my brand is called OmiWoods. I'm going to be sharing a PowerPoint with you. And my brand is called OmiWoods, and we specialize in ethical fine jewelry. Um, so a little bit about OmiWoods. So essentially, we're known for our silver and our gold pieces. We focus on Africa and the African diaspora, and we use fair trade and conflict-free metals. This is an image. Let me see if this is going through. Yeah. So we're going into just like business. That was a little bit about what we do. But in terms of like the back end for a business, it's really important to wear many hats. So I started out in communications, and that really helped me out because I was able to take some of my own photos. I was able to navigate online. And as a business owner, you're definitely doing more than one thing, especially when you're just starting out. And then as you continue to grow, one of the things that people really say is to make sure to be lean. So making sure that you're working with contractors as much as possible. So we work with a lot of goldsmiths, with jewelers who do work that I don't have the time to do or they have a better capacity to do. Automate where you can. Use things like QuickBooks for your accounting, ShipStation, when you get to the point where you can no longer manage shipping items manually by yourself. And then learn the essential skills for your business, but also outsource other necessary skills or other skills that other folks can do better than you or that you just don't want to do. So being more than a creative, I started out in fashion apparel, and I essentially was completely creative. I didn't see myself as a business person, and that's great if you're doing it for a hobby, but later down the line, there's little challenges that came up, different bumps in the road that came up, and it was really necessary for me to understand the business component, the numbers, and how to market. So I joined an incubator program. I joined a couple actually, one called Fashion Zone in Toronto, the other one called the Joe Fresh Center, and that was an accelerator program. And essentially they taught me the fundamentals of business and marketing. So just getting into that business 101, the super like simplified version of it is you're creating a product or a service that fulfills a need at a price your customer is willing to pay. And the marketing 101, the marketing aspect of this is communicating this to them in an effective way. So the brand, we focus on heritage and culture. And so in conceptualizing how we're going to create the branding, I love museums, I love art galleries. So I wanted the photos to look like they were either something you would see at a museum or an art gallery, or something that kind of reflected that vibe. So we incorporated this into the color story. There's a lot of beiges and neutrals. They look like they can be timeless. And we utilize photographers who have like similar aesthetics to that. So content, brand, assets. So content that you're going to be creating for social media and your websites. It's also known as your brand assets. So the first things first is your description. That's where you're really conceptualizing. This took me a really long time to narrow down, especially the one sentence. It's similar to something called the elevator pitch. Just how do you quickly describe your brand to somebody that you're just meeting? It doesn't necessarily have to be too pushy, but it should let people know what your brand is about. And this generally will show up in all of your pages. So you can see that I have the same description in each page: cultural gems made with fair trade African gold and globally sourced conflict-free fine metals. And I also link to the different publications that I've been in just to show some credibility. And I do it again and again. It simplifies it. It means that when people come to my page, they know who I am. There's so much of an oversaturation of imagery and information. So what really drives a lot of really strong brands is just a consistent message and having that be what you are known for and what people come to you for. So description continued. We just had the one sentence, but then there's the one paragraph as well. So the one paragraph essentially is something that people will generally use for your bio. This is my one paragraph here. And I also have 3 others. So the one paragraph is really about the brand. I can send it to somebody if they want to know about it. I usually just like copy and paste from my about section on my website. And then I also have a 3-paragraph section that's for publications. And when I'm sending or doing something like mail out, I'm making sure that I always incorporate this information in the information that I'm sharing. Even when I'm sharing my content on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, there's something about these 3 paragraphs that I'm sharing, so it helps create that consistent message. Content and brand assets, fonts and colors. So thinking about your brand as something that has really primary colors. So mine, for instance, is the salmon kind of color, a pinky color. Secondary colors, neutrals, and tertiary colors, whites. And keep that as a brand story and keep it consistent with your imagery. A tip is to go to a site called defont.com, and you can download free fonts on that site and utilize them. You can also pay if you're going to utilize them commercially, you can pay the creators a fee that they set, and it's pretty affordable. It's like 25 or so to get a font. And essentially, I use that font for my logo. My logo is just the font that I downloaded. I've done this twice, and then I made that my logo and my font. Content and brand assets continue. So photos, the most important thing. We're visual people, and it's the most important thing for your brand. I really recommend having high quality photos because the photo is the first point of contact that people are going to have to your brand. So editorial photos. I shoot editorial photos. Have I ever done? No, no. For this brand, I've never done my own editorial photos. I've always worked with photographers whose vision I really respect. Essentially what they're high-end shots that you send to magazines and bloggers. So magazines and blogs are not always creating their own content anymore, and a lot of them will pull directly from your content. And so you can see in the background, you'll see there's a lady, she's wearing this piece, and I'll just show you the different ways that I showed it. So first is your editorial lifestyle. She's wearing this piece, and it's not too much of a lifestyle post because, again, the museum aspect or art gallery aspect that I wanted, but for folks who do have brands that make more sense to have lifestyle photos, you'd want an editorial like shot in a lifestyle type context. So there's a little bit of the realistic, but also a little bit of the hyper real. And then you can see I have a close-up here rather. And I included this picture that has the logo of a publication that used it, just to let you know that these publications will pull directly from your pictures and then they'll put it in their own publications. And you can see the close-up, it gives the images life. And when people are online, they'll be able to see how a piece would look on them. The editorial is kind of farther. It can include more things in the background, but the close-up on a model, the close-up on somebody's hand, the close-up in a way that a person would kind of look at the piece on themselves, that's something that's really important to include. I didn't include videos here, but that's also something that's growing, just showing how a piece moves. And it also depends on what you're doing. So if you're an artist who is doing things that related to movement and video would be very important. So that's just something to consider. Then I have the white background shot. So this is something that's really important for your brand because most publications, if they're doing like a gift guide or any type of situation where you're going to have your piece separately, especially since a lot of pages are white background in general, you're gonna want all your pieces to be photographed on a white background because you don't know what the publication, the blog will request. And when they request these things, it's usually like a day that you have to submit it. And in saying that, you should have everything that you have in your catalog that you're selling available on a white background and on a close-up. Editorials, not so much, but this close-up, as you can see, I have a lot of pieces, so I just like would end up putting a lot of pieces together. And some people do still life things. Some people are using fruits. You know, some people, there's a picnic. You know, some people it's coffee. Coffee and puppies is usually the go. I don't have too many coffees and puppies because it doesn't really work with my brand too much, but people really are drawn to things that transmit the vibe or the feeling that you're trying to transmit. It's really about creating a feeling with your images. So a tip, save your photos in a Google Drive and give press the link upon request. So when press contacts me in an email, they're like, hey, we want something for tomorrow, or we want something by end of day. I say, here's a Google link, and they can go in and select the images they want and just organize it by collection, or mine is organized by collection and then white backdrop, editorial, and then model photos. And I think I already said this, yeah, your editorial and lifestyle photos don't have to show every piece, but your white background should. Social media marketing. I have to admit, I've never paid for social media marketing. I'm pretty lucky. I've done like one-off like tests of like, let me boost something or I haven't paid for it. What really works is just having a very compelling product or service. That's worked for me, but social media marketing is something that I'm going to start jumping more into. And this is really where your assets come to play. Focus on one platform. That's what somebody told me. That's what some folks told me to do. You'll naturally see that you're gravitating towards a platform. For me, it's Instagram. It also works because a lot of fashion companies are on Instagram, but it depends on your customer. So you really have to think about where your customer spends their time the most and be there. If you're selling something for grandmas, you know that grandmas are not all up in Instagram. They're likely going to be on Facebook. You know, I'm finding that my grandpa is really on WhatsApp. That's kind of like their Instagram. They share like little videos and all that kind of stuff. So really think about where your customer is and park yourself there. And focus on, be present on all. Make sure you like kind of delineate and have your at on all platforms, but people generally tend to focus on just one. So we'll touch on a little bit on each one. Now, Instagram. Think of Instagram as your lookbook. So essentially, this is generally one of the first social media points of contact that people are gonna have with your brand. Make sure that it's consistent. Make sure that it's really, every image is representing the brand. My brand is associated with silver and gold, so I'm making sure that I have high-end quality shots. I have some pictures that add to kind of the social credibility. And essentially, when you're in magazines or when you're putting your stuff on big influencers, that adds to like the it factor, the social credibility. So you can add that in there. But I still try to use images that fit. If an influencer didn't have, or a artist didn't have a piece, or they're not wearing the colors that kind of fit the brand, I won't necessarily use it. I'll more post it into my stories. And then I also, just because I don't take pictures every single day of my life, basically I use some inspirational pictures that still fit the mood. And I search for those generally on Pinterest. And that's something that's really fun. I find that it breaks things up a little. But you can see that I have some video, and some of these videos are just shot with my iPhone in natural lighting. So I have some video close-ups, and this is kind of like, especially the hand one, there's this one jewelry company that I saw, and I saw what they were doing and I liked it. So I made it my own version, and definitely take things and make it your own. Connect your shop to to Instagram, your online shop. That way, if you see this, like, I don't know if you guys can see my arrows, but if you see this little shopping bag, it lets people know that they can purchase through or even see the price of an item. And that kind of helps with conversions. And use apps like Planoly to plan out your grid. I love Planoly. It looks a little bit like this, and you get to schedule where you're going to put things. And it's also good because it gives you analytics. And one thing that I use, because I don't really study analytics, it's kind of hard for me to be like, okay, this. What I do is I just see what are the top posts this week, what are the top posts in a year, and what is consistent. So what posts generate the most sales? Like posts like this, they may not, where my hand is close up on a product, they may not get a lot of likes, as many likes as like beautiful shots, of course, of Rihanna or of these ladies with like really interesting, intricate hair. They don't get as much likes, but because you can see the image closer, they get more sales. So I have to make sure that I add those in just so that there's well-rounded content for what people want. When I have the post where there's like necklaces and you can see the different lengths, people kind of use this to say, this is the length I like, what length is this? And so they're using it to shop, because this is really, your online is really the only point of contact people have. And a lot of people come to me through my Instagram. And I know when I buy things online, I'll like go and I want to see it from every angle. And like, I want to know like, how does it look when you're walking down the street? How does it move? So I like looking at multiple pictures. And that's another thing. Make sure you have about like 3 to 4 pictures of the same thing in different like angles and all that good stuff, so that folks can kind of feel it and see it and know what the vibe is. Moving along. Okay. So Facebook. Let me see. Used to set up social media marketing on Instagram and Facebook. So essentially, when you plug into your Facebook, you could post your marketing and your ads directly from Instagram, but Facebook has a much better platform and interface for you to really specifically target your audiences. It's nice to use their algorithms at the beginning, but remember, Facebook is trying to make money off of you doing ads. So sometimes they'll just like send like stuff to a whole bunch of people, but there's really an art to being able to target specific audiences, target their interests, and really go in depth of what you think the customer is. There's something called pixels that you could add to your website. You definitely should be adding that to your website, because that gathers the information from people who come to your website through the cookies thing. And so that will allow you to see who's purchasing from your brand. Sometimes we have an idea of who our customer is, but it's not necessarily who the customer really is. And there may be times when you have other customers that are coming through. So it's important to kind of transmute that through your entire brand. So make sure you have a page and a presence on Facebook. And yes, it's a science. And sometimes it's good to actually hire an agency or do a workshop with an agency. It's going to be about $2,000 in testing for the first month or so. But they are also work with people who say that they're going to guarantee you return, like a 3 times return on your ad spend. And it's definitely possible. They'll help to have you tweak what you're doing. So Pinterest, this is my home. I love Pinterest. There have been many nights where I've spent like just like pinning and online, looking at clay and pottery and all that, houses and all that stuff. So it's a great and affordable sales driver. Most people are on there looking for unique things. They want you to stay on, so people just keep scrolling endlessly. Posts are shared forever and ever and ever. They don't get deleted, so they just continue to be shared. And they're also experimenting things with like merchant pages, and they have affordable options for ads, just because not as many people are doing ads as on Instagram and Facebook. So it's an interesting place to put ads. I see some of the shops that I follow having ads on there, and it definitely makes you look, because it's right in the feed. So you're just like, oh, and then you can click through. One of the tips for Pinterest is, instead of going to Pinterest and adding your content directly to Pinterest, you can download a plugin for your browser. I recommend doing it. It's a Pinterest plugin. And what you do is you then go to your website and you click it and you right click generally, and it says share to Pinterest. And when you do that, it will share directly to your site on your Pinterest page, and it will allow people who are starting to follow or reposting your pins, it will allow them to come and shop directly from your site. And you don't have to like write anything up or do anything. It's automatic. The price is there. It goes directly to the link that you shared. There's a brief description and the picture. So that's like one of the hacks. I know they do it definitely for Shopify and for Etsy. It's similar to you being able to pin kind of any image that you see online. So I recommend that. Don't share directly from Pinterest and upload everything. Definitely right click your pictures from your posts on your website. So how to boost posts on Instagram, some tips and tricks that I've learned over the years is, first and foremost, take beautiful professional photos. I cannot say this enough. And even if you're just starting, spend that money to take just a few. Like, I know when I work with photographers, they're generally doing about 11 to 10 shots. And the good thing about it is you're seeing pictures that are from the very beginning of my jewelry brand, and they still are polished enough for me to share with folks and to land in publications. Use a social media management app like Planoly to lay out your grid. It will allow you to kind of visualize. It's hard, it's virtually impossible to just post and like plan out a beautifully organized grid. So really use something that's going to allow you to visually see what's happening with your grid. When people post on your Instagram, like all comments, respond to all comments. If somebody shares something on their Instagram, go in and like it. If you have the time, go in and comment as well. Share all tags. If it doesn't match your grid, then share it to your stories 100%. And essentially what that does is just shows that Instagram it's increasing engagement. And what Instagram works with and what they really want is to keep people on the platform as long as possible. So if they know that your brand is like keeping people here for hours and hours and hours, then they're like, okay, we're just gonna show all her posts. We're gonna do this because people are just staying on Instagram longer on this page. Another little tip is to post to your feed and then like maybe a minute or so later post right to your stories. That just boosts engagement for some reason. Determine how often you want to post. I think this was talked about before, and be consistent. Is it every day, every other day? And use hashtags and follow complementary accounts. There's a little trick that you can do where you can unfollow complementary accounts, and then a lot of times if people like your feed, they'll come back and follow you. So that if you have like a lot of hours on your hands, you can go and do that. And you can even just follow people, comment on what they said, and they'll come back and they'll follow you if they like what they see. So working with influencers, essentially that is a science and an art, I would say. Some people say to work with influencers, some don't. I'm pretty lucky because I've had influencers come to me, and that just goes back to the business 101. I'm creating jewelry in metals, and generally you don't really see African jewelry in precious metals. You're seeing a lot of costume jewelry. So the influencers are genuinely pretty excited when they see the pieces, especially since some of my pieces have a specific country like Jamaica or, Sierra Leone, and these folks have never really seen jewelry specific to them. So a lot of influencers will naturally gravitate and will just be like, I want this. And that's something I really recommend, working with people who are genuinely interested in your brand and developing that relationship. But if you want to also like look and see the influencers that you should work with, you really have to find people who convert. A good way to do that is they have relationships with other brands. So it's kind of tried and tested. If they're working for like Kellogg's and like ketchup company, they have a bunch of brands that are just like, I want to give this person stuff because I know that they're selling and things are moving. It's a good indication that they convert. Also look for influencers and talent who need constant content. So something someone told me in a workshop is sometimes we think it's really hard to get into a publication like a magazine or a newspaper, but remember, the job of these folks is to constantly be feeding people with content. So they need if you're doing clothing or accessories, musicians and actors, they constantly need clothing, they constantly need jewelry. Just ask them, hey, would you be interested in me sending you some samples? I really like this, I think this matches up. They constantly need, just see who needs what you have consistently and constantly, because they will likely utilize it and keep coming back to you. The sweet spot for influencers tends to be about 10K to 250K followers. You don't have to try and be like, Kim Kardashian's a person I need all the time, whatever. But essentially what happens is with this 10 to 250K, it's still small enough for these folks to have intimate connections to their followers. So they are likely to then comment and buy and engage. Send a test product and do a test run to see how it does. You can see if their stuff converts. You can see there's one person that I sent product to, they got it lost and they asked for a lot. So it was it was a little bit annoying. But you do a test run in a test product, not to put all your eggs in one basket. Ask if there's something that they're interested in your catalog, and really try not to pay them. Really work with people who have a genuine interest in what you're doing. SEO, search engine optimization. So this word is thrown around a lot. And essentially it's like, where does your brand or where does your page, your website show up on Google search? So when somebody searches for earrings for me, like African earrings, where does it show up? And there's ways to increase this. One is to get covered by large publications. So large magazines, news, your local news, university publications, they have, there's something about those sites that increase and boost your SEO because people see that it's a reputable business. Get mentioned by large influencers and bloggers. Once you get the ball rolling, it kind of just continues, and see who's in your space, in your community, and really reach out to them. That helps to boost your SEO. Utilize keywords in your product names and description, even saved images. I believe this was talked about a little bit before, because essentially what's happening is folks are just going to search. They're going to go online and they're going to be like, I want pink roses, or I want purple roses. And they're going to find you based on that. So make sure that's in your product name first and foremost, and then in your description. But that, I can't say that enough. You can have the name of an item, but also just in the name, put be descriptive. And really think about what keywords people are using to search. Keep your message consistent and keep repeating your brand values so that people will know you for this, and that people, when they share, know what to share and what content to write. And this is what I've scheduled. So you're seeing essentially like how many people commented, how many likes you got. This is starting to go into the future. I just take time with this and I play around. I'm not completely happy with it, but I'm able to play around. I look at the colors. I look at making sure I don't have like a picture of this person's necklace and then another one right above. So trying to like make sure you plan it out in a way that creates kind of like an interesting interesting flow. And then you can go in and you can analyze what's going on. So you can see like, what are your top posts this month? Or let me just say year, because since COVID, I've been not on Instagram as much as I should be, but I think people understand that, you know, it's COVID. So yes, analyze, you can see where people are coming in. Generally, I just scroll right down to the visual aspects. It's not loading right now, but you can see your top posts generally. You're able to see what people liked, and let me see photos. Let me see if it loads. No, Okay, so you'll generally see you can't see it now, but you'll generally see photos, and you might notice a trend. As I said, that's when I noticed, okay, people share this a lot, but this converts to a lot of sales. So going into your back end and seeing the visuals is pretty helpful. Let me go to I'm gonna open up a screen. Oh, I don't think you can just open any screen. Okay, interesting. So that's kind of what that looks like on the back end.